Good morning, everybody. I appreciate you all being here today. I wanted to reach out. I wanted to thank Speaker Turzai. I believe Mike will be here very shortly. Also, Senator Eichelberger, who's also been working on this issue. He should be joining us shortly. I have York City Mayor Kim Bracey with me, Lancaster City Mayor Rick Gray, and I will say there's quite a few mayors behind me that have helped support my House Bill 316. Representative Groves helped me with it also, and I just appreciate their continued efforts in helping to advance municipal pension reform here in the Commonwealth. I would also like to thank the members of the House State Government Committee who today, with the leadership of Darrell Metcalf, voted to send House Bill 316 to the full House for consideration. Representative Metcalf just joined us, and I can say his leadership was just tremendous this morning. I think what we saw this morning, though, is you saw a group of representatives show leadership in the fact that they recognize the dire need to address Pennsylvania's growing municipal pension liability, which currently stands at just around $8 billion. While today's committee vote represents an important step toward addressing our statewide municipal pension crisis, our work is certainly not done. The municipal leaders that you see standing here with me today have traveled across the Commonwealth to advocate for the tools. Let me make it clear, tools. They're looking for a hand up, not a handout, so that they can control their municipalities' pension costs. House Bill 316 provides them with just those tools. It allows our municipal leaders to begin the process of preserving and protecting pensions for current employees while placing new ones on an affordable and sustainable path for the future ones. Once again, I thank everybody and everybody behind me for their support as we continue to fight for financial sustainability moving forward. Thank you. I do want to address a few people. We have a few speakers here to start. First of all, I just want to reach out to some of the attendees that are with us today before I turn it over to Mayor Kim Bracey of York City. As I said, Speaker Mike Turzai is going to be here, Chairman Metcalf, Representative Seth Grove, who introduced this bill last session, who's been a tireless worker statewide on this also. So I see Senator John Eichelberger has joined us. Glad to have the senator here. And then there's a lot of municipal leaders. We have Kim Bracey, the mayor of the city of York, Carolyn Comita, who's the mayor of Westchester Borough. I have Rick Gray from my own county, from the city of Lancaster, John Kunzelman, the commissioner from East Pennsboro Township, Diane Levin, council member, town of Bloomsburg, Dave Montz, manager of Green Tree Borough. We have Tom Reel, the mayor of the city of Bradford, Matt Stanisweski, the director of community and economic development, the city of Newcastle. We have Steve Stevenson, council member, the city of Lock Haven, A.C. Stickle, the controller of the city of Altoona, Justin Taylor, the mayor of the city of Carbondale, and Bill McLaughlin, council member from Chambersburg Borough. So we certainly have a wide array of leaders from throughout the entire Commonwealth. Now with that, I'm going to turn it over to Kim Bracey so that she can provide you a few remarks. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Good morning, everyone. Representative Grove, Grell, Metcalf, our senator, my colleagues, and members of the media. Thank you all for joining us this morning. Again, I am Kim Bracey, mayor of the city of York, the co-chair of the Legislative Committee of the Pennsylvania Municipal League, a bipartisan organization, and a longtime member of the Coalition of Sustainable Communities, an entity that was formed in 2011, lobbying and talking to people since 2011 with the sole purpose to improve the fiscal stability and economic vitality of Pennsylvania core communities, such as the city of York. We have worked together begging for needed reform to municipal pension statutes that mandate how cities cover pension costs with mainly our uniform union personnel. Archaic codes, inflexible local taxing structure, mandated personnel costs, have placed severe financial hardships on our core communities. So we are thrilled to see movement and leadership by the Republican members of the House of Representatives and their committee today on this municipal pension reform. Thank you all. We have only ever asked for the tools needed to control the spiraling costs. We are not asking for any funding, only for needed structural reform. House Bill 316 will start to address the problem with just new hires and by giving communities a fairer chance of balancing our annual budgets. So please know that we only intend to strike a balance between cost and the ability to be able to handle those costs within our local government structure. We believe together we can turn the tide by not only making municipal pension fair and fiscally sustainable for all of our communities, but also in protecting them for the public safety personnel that we know we need and respect. So again, thank you all for your leadership and everyone for being here today.
Thank you, Mayor. The next speaker today is going to be the mayor from my county, Rick Gray, the mayor of Lancaster City.
Well, thank you. Thank you. The House vote today on House Bill 316 will mark a milestone. We've been working on this for years to get some movement on local municipal pension. We're very proud that this happened. Unfortunately, it was along straight party lines, the vote. All the Republicans voted to move the bill forward for further debate. All the Democrats voted against it. I'm a Democrat. And I find it disheartening that it appears that the Democrats in this building aren't really recognizing what the problem is at the local level. As I listened to the debate this morning, the concentration was on whether the funding programs for the pensions were fully funded, partially funded, mildly distressed, severely distressed. They missed the point that in the city of Lancaster, since I've been mayor, our pension contribution has gone from $2 million to $6 million plus annually. That $4 million, though it might not mean much in the state capitol, means less police, less firefighters, roads that aren't paved as well, things that aren't maintained. It comes out of our general budget. There wasn't one mention of that kind of effect on municipalities at the local level. So, though I'm happy and I'm pleased that Representative Greiner and Representative Grove have provided great leadership on this, I think we, the leaders of the municipalities in Pennsylvania, have a real education job to do on our representatives to let them know how this severely impacts their community and how it's in need of real reform. So again, representatives, thank you, and Representative Metcalf, thank you very much for the work that's been done today and the movement forward. And as I said, it's one step forward. It's a long and winding road, but at least we've begun to move on it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor, very much. Next speaker has a few words is going to be Senator Eichelberger. Glad to have the senator here. Thank you.
Good morning. I deeply appreciate a lot of the work that these folks behind me have done. The Coalition for Sustainable Communities is a group of business and local government leaders that have formed a coalition to try to advance a very important agenda because they see the erosion and deterioration of our third-class cities particularly, but some other local governments, and the pressures that are upon them that they need help with. And they need us to make decisions in Harrisburg that will allow them to prosper and grow. They're trapped into a very bad situation. Most of these folks, interestingly, that I've been working with are Democrats, as Mayor Gray said. And they are putting a lot of pressure on the Democrats in this building, including the governor, to try to help with these problems. The only help they've received so far, and I'm kind of embarrassed to say it because I like to work with everybody in this building, are mostly from Republicans, actually exclusively from Republicans. And we need Democrat members to step up and tell the public sector unions, in this case, the bill that I'm presenting, the police and the firefighters for the local governments, that They need to be more realistic and work with the local governments so that we have public safety officers in place around the Commonwealth to protect the citizenry. We are losing police and firefighters all across this state. And we're losing them because we can't afford to maintain the numbers that we've had in place for years. Police departments are closing, they're downsizing, they're regionalizing, they're doing all sorts of things. Firefighters are being laid off. This is because of cost, and we have to have the ability for the local governments to address that in different ways. As has been said, we have to have tools in place. Retirement is part of that. Pension programs, the old pension programs are unsustainable. Everybody in the private sector, virtually everybody, has moved away from that. It's time that we do that in government, and we have good plans for people, and in many cases better plans than what people have today. These defined contribution plans are actually better for many people, especially short-term employees that work in government, than what they have in place today for long-term benefits. So this isn't bad for people. It's good, but it helps our governments and it gives them what they need, another tool to get something done. My bill would switch new employees to a defined contribution program, police and firefighters, and it also makes very clear the problems we have with our binding arbitration process in Pennsylvania, that these provisions would never be infringed upon with a binding arbitration ruling, that this is the law and it can't be tampered with because we have too many problems with the binding arbitration process that they interfere in ways that were never intended. So I would ask for support on this, and again, I appreciate deeply the people that are on the ground doing the work back home, but are here fighting the battles at the Capitol. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator, very much. Next, my chairman on the State Government Committee, Representative Darrell Metcalf, would like to say a few words. Certainly an honor to have him here and giving us an overview of maybe what happened today. Thank you, Darrell.
Good morning. It's a pleasure to be with Representative Greiner and Representative Grove. We've been working on this issue for quite some time now. And this issue, regardless of what happened in the committee today, this issue should be a bipartisan issue. I mean, as seen from the mayors that are here and some of the council folks, that we have both Democrats and Republicans supporting these types of structural changes to address the problems that many of our municipalities are seeing across the state. And a lot of the debate that went on today, talking about what's distressed, what isn't distressed, how many are distressed. Well, the Auditor General has done some very good work in this regard, and even the township that I live in it's not distressed, but it's underfunded. And potentially, whichever way the markets go, what's underfunded could become distressed in the very near future. We have to address these structural changes that are needed with this pension system. I think that the problems that we're seeing with the state system, the state retirement system, the Pennsylvania state school employees retirement system, and with the municipalities retirement systems across the Commonwealth are very similar. We have benefits that have been laid out for many, many generations now that just aren't sustainable any longer. And what's being offered are good plans, the Greiner legislation, the Eichelberger legislation he's talking about. We have to bring government in line with what's being offered in the private sector. I think that these types of legislation does just that, and it also helps the local taxpayer to be able to afford to continue to pay for the services that they still need. Because as was mentioned by the mayors, we're losing service as a result of these uncontrolled costs that are spiraling out of control and have potential really to take a lot of our cities under and put an even greater burden on the Pennsylvania state taxpayer, as some of those would potentially need to be bailed out in the future if we don't correct this. So today's bipartisan effort amongst the mayors and amongst the Republican legislators in the State Government Committee, we just need the message to get to my colleagues here in the House and across the chamber and the Senate. This isn't a partisan issue. You can be with us on this. You should be with us. Your colleagues that are serving as mayors and council folks are with us. Let's join together and fix this for the benefit of all of Pennsylvania.
Thank you, Darrell. just in conclusion, I was hoping that the speaker, Mike Turzai, could be here. I know that there's something else going on too called the budget and budget negotiations, and unfortunately, I don't think Mike's here. I will say that Mike's demonstrated great leadership on this. Also, he's actually a co-sponsor on HB 316, so I wanted to thank him for that. And with that, that concludes this press conference. Thank you. Are there any questions for? Any questions for myself or for anybody else up here who spoke? I'll let Chairman Metcalf address that because he's also working on the state pension issue.
We have really two schools of thought moving forward in the state pension reform legislation. We have the Senate Bill 1 that's come over that includes the state police. We have the CANF legislation, House Bill 727, I believe it is, that carved out the state police. So that's still something that's being discussed. I know there's many of us that think that we need to address the state pensions in a way that ends defined benefits for the states so that the taxpayers aren't burdened with that potential problem in the future. But to focus, I mean, these are two completely different pieces of legislation, and what's being offered by Representative Greiner is certainly different than we're offering for the state, but they have different types of problems than we have overall in the state. The majority of their problem are the benefits that are being paid out to their police and fire. The majority of our problem in the state of Pennsylvania are not the benefits that are being paid out to our state police, but are the benefits that are being paid out to the hundreds of thousands of school employees and state employees. So the way that the way that the equation is made up for the problem is quite different, and what's being offered by Representative Greiner is something that we've been able to find consensus on to move us forward to address those structural issues.
Just said the key serves of municipalities and serves all those problems are very similar. State police and corrections, I think something like 7 states working. So would you carve out the state police and not?
As I said, I mean, the two pieces of legislation that we have right now that we're working on, one carves out the state police, one doesn't. Many of us favor the one that doesn't. So we'll see where consensus falls in the future. But right now, the legislation we've discussed today, we're finding consensus amongst Democrat mayors, Republican legislators to address the structural issues that municipalities are facing across this Commonwealth in a responsible way to give them the tools to actually rein in the excessive costs that their taxpayers have to deal with that are taking away services on the street. So this bill needs to move forward as drafted, I believe, or Senator Eichelberger's, if that comes across the chamber, certainly be open to that also.
I would think so. I mean, I think she asked about trying to get the Democrats on board and what happens if we don't. We're going to continue to try to move the bill. We're going to try to schedule my bill for a vote within the next week or so in the Senate. And no, these are two separate plans, and then we'll work together to see which one we finally advance at the end.
Political issue would keep Republicans from being able to move this forward?
The unions, the public sector unions. In my case, it would be the FOP and the firefighters. If they had any inroads into members, that would they would ask for them to vote against it. And they probably will, because they don't want changes to their system, and they like the fact that the arbitrators can continually have the availability to add further benefits even beyond what the law says. So that's why that language is also included in here. I mean, it just doesn't work.
I
think there's a reality from what they've seen in the line of duty. There's less police and firefighter today than where they were. They're having to put their lives on the line with less backup. That's a reality. It's a numbers game and it's a fiscal matter. I'm sure we would have a thicker red and blue line in our local governments, but it's tough to afford that with the pension costs that continue to drive. Even for those communities that are not in distressed pensions, you have a continuing ballooning of costs in those pension where city governments are looking at it and saying, I can't hire another firefighter, I can't hire another police department. I think York City is a great example. They've been trying to use the current structure to deal with their pension conserves. And when I started on this, I said, a year and a half ago, York City will have a commuter tax, they'll have less police, they'll have less fires, and they will take concessions on their retirement, so they will have less benefits. That's a reality today. And there's nothing Kim Bracey can do about that. It's a reality of her budget and the direction we're going in. And I don't want to see, and I don't think any of us want to see a Detroit come to Pennsylvania. And that's reality. We have at least one municipality that's on the cusp of giving people who gave their lives for their community, 10 cents on the dollar of their retirement. And that includes current retirees. We're trying to prevent that. It's a reality of a fiscal message we're trying to relay here that says we want to protect your pension. The reality is if things continue down the path that they're going right now, we can't guarantee those pensions for current retirees and current employees.
Yeah, obviously we're beginning the conversation. I likely won't see it, but it's the conversation that needs to happen for new hires. We aren't hiring anyone right now, for one thing. So until we begin hiring folks when this passes, that's when we'll see some impact happen for them 20 years from now. But they'll still get a benefit. There's still a plan. There's still, and they can invest themselves as well, too. So to your earlier question, folks aren't going to be being hired from the city of York and not receive some sort of benefit at the end of the day. So there will be a plan.
If I could, in response to that too, if we have 2 open firefighter positions, 150 people sign up to take the test, they're in demand. I would bet that none of them care or ask about the pension plan. They're 23, 24, 25 years old. That number one. Number two, the current people's pension plan, the people that are working right now, is guaranteed. It's not going to be messed with at all. It's not going to change. Number three, this isn't some piddling sum that you're going to have when you retire. This is a substantial benefit that my guess is probably better than your retirement plan. It provides an amount for people when they retire that we think we can provide. If we promise amounts to people who are police and fire that 25 years from now we cannot pay, we should be ashamed of ourselves. So what we want to do is structure something fair to the people there today. We're not changing anything. Fair to the incoming people. They can figure out what it's going to be as they go on. We can figure out what it's going to be and make appropriate plans to pay it. So it's not like we're taking something away from people. The people that currently have plans, it'll remain the same. The new people, it'll be a different plan that we can actually figure and work with, and they can do the same. It's like,
the question was, and Representative Chairman Metcalf might have more insight, is municipal pensions, there was talk that maybe state pensions need to be moved before municipal pensions, and since actually both pension bills are out of your committee, maybe you have some insight into that, Mr. Chairman, on that.
I think whether it's a state system, the school system, or the problems the municipalities are having, taxpayers are faced with issues across the state. Today, we were able to take action on the municipal bill. The work's not done. We moved it out of committee. Senator Eichelberger is working on similar legislation, not same, but similar in the Senate. So it's an issue that the debate is ramping up on. I think we're further along on the state employee system and the school employee retirement system. I think we're further along on that legislation becoming a reality this year. There's still work to be done in the municipal pension reform. I hope that that proceeds quickly, but we've made a major step today moving it out of committee, but the work's not complete. So we've moved one bill out of my committee on the state retirement systems, school retirement system. We have another bill that we just had hearings on last week, Senate Bill 1, that we were just having discussions in caucus on yesterday, and we're going to continue to work on that throughout this week and next week, and hopefully find some resolution as the budget proceeds and before we wrap up the budget here, hopefully by the end of the month.
Very good. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Have a great afternoon.